All right, ladies and gentlemen, so you should have this worksheet open and ready to go. We're going to skip over this first part because you should be able to do all of this on your own, finding those molar mass of each of those compounds. You guys were crushing that before, so you should be good there. As far as this section goes, this is kind of just a refresher, just a couple things. There are 3 definitions or conversion factors for a mole. So these are 3 different ways to go from moles to something else. We are only really going to talk about this one a whole lot. The other 2, this one you've seen before. We're not going to use too much though, but we do know that that's how we represent 1 mole. This is going to be important in a different unit that we may or may not get to this year, but we're not going to talk about that today. What we are going to be talking about is using the molar mass or the grams to go from grams to moles or to go from moles to grams. So we have our 8 steps, and those are the exact same 8 steps you should have been following since last week, Thursday. And I'm not going to read through each one of them individually, but as we go through our first couple, let's just remind ourselves about these steps. So this first part, we're going to go through group A practice together and see how we're doing with all this. So it said, how many moles are there in 15 grams of Li, which is lithium? So can anybody tell me our pathway or what we're going from and what we're trying to get to? What are those units? What units do we start with? That first problem. We start with our mass, perfect. So we're going from grams or mass. And what are we trying to get to? What units are we trying to find at the end?
Ounces.
Not ounces. Check again. So the 15 is still part of our grams. What is the unit we're trying to get to at the end of this problem? How many what?
Moles.
Moles. So we're trying to get to moles right here. So we're trying to go from grams to moles. And what do we need in order to go from grams to moles? What do we have to use? We need some conversion factor. What is that going to be? What's it called? Starts with an M. We find it on the periodic table.
Mass.
Perfect. We're going to need that molar mass. So we need the molar mass to go from grams to moles or to go from moles to grams. So what's the molar mass going to be for lithium? Who knows it or who can find it?
$6.94.
6.94. And what are my units on that one?
Grams.
Lithium.
And then equal what? Oh, no, wait.
Yeah.
1 mole?
Yeah, perfect.
All right.
All right. So the number of grams that equals 1 mole is perfect. So now that we have our molar mass, we know our pathway, we know where we're trying to go from and what we're trying to get to. And it already gave us that element symbol. We didn't have to find out the formula. We already have that. So now all we need to do is steps 4 through 8 from above, which step 4 says to draw our railroad tracks. So we're going to draw our railroad tracks. And since we only have 1 step, we only need 1 divider. And so what do we put in this top left right here? What should I put there?
Given.
All right, I like the given. Careful, it's not going to be this 6.94 grams. What is our given? What's the given from the problem? Not the mole. That's what we're trying to get to. So our given must be the other part, which is what?
15 grams of lithium.
The 15 grams of lithium is going to be our given. And now what do we use in this second column right here? If our given goes here, What goes in the second column?
Molar mass.
Our molar mass or our conversion factor. Awesome. So now we need to figure out where are we going to put this one and where are we going to put this one. So they go in different lines. One of them is going to go on top and one of them goes on the bottom. Which one goes on the bottom? What do we think? Do we put the 6.94 grams of lithium on the bottom or the 1 mole on the bottom?
6.94 grams on the bottom.
And why are we putting the 6.94 grams on the bottom?
Because we want to find the molar mass.
Exactly. So we want to get rid of the grams because we want to find the number of moles of lithium. So we're trying to get rid of those grams. So if one of them's on top and one of them's on the bottom, they're going to cancel out with each other. And so we're going to be left with just these units of lithium or moles of lithium. And now our last two steps is to multiply everything on top together. So we're going to take our 15 times 1 and divide it by 6.94. And what do we get for our answer when we do 15 times 1 divided by 6.94?
$2.16.
2.16 what? What are my units?
Grams.
Careful, not grams. What's left? What's left in our railroad tracks?
1 mole.
Just the moles, right? Just those units of moles of lithium is the only unit left. So our units are going to be moles of lithium. And that should match up here with the units that we're trying to get to, which is moles, which means we did the problem correctly. Do you have any questions on that one? Should we do another one together? Just to refresh ourselves?
Yes.
All right, let's take a look at the next one. The pathway is the first thing we need to figure out. So what are we starting with? What units do we start with? What units are we trying to get to?
We're
So we're
starting with
starting with
moles.
Perfect. We're starting with those 2.4 moles. So our units that we're starting with are the moles. And what are we trying to get to?
Grams.
We're trying to get to grams. Awesome. So we're going from moles to grams here. Perfect. So in order to go from moles to grams, what do we have to know? What do we have to use? We need a conversion factor. What are we going to use for that conversion factor? The given, okay, so we need something about the given.
Molar mass.
The molar mass. So we got to use the molar mass again. So we have to figure out the molar mass of sulfur this time. So what's the molar mass of sulfur?
32.07 grams equal 1 mole S.
Awesome. 32.07 grams of sulfur equals 1 mole of sulfur. All right, so now we know the pathway, we know the element's symbol or the chemical formula, we know the molar mass. We need to set up our railroad tracks. We have the 1 column again. All right, and what do we put in the top left?
2.4 moles of sulfur.
2.4 moles of sulfur, because that's what we start with. All right. If your periodic table says 32.06, that's fine. The periodic table, if the rounding changes some of the periodic tables, so if yours says 32.07, it's the exact same. It's not going to be wrong on your sheet if you have 32.06 or 32.07. They get you the same information. All right, so now we need to make sure that we are going from moles to grams. We want to make sure our moles go away and we're leaving grams as our only unit. So how are we going to put our conversion factor, our molar mass, into this column so that we get rid of moles and we only have grams left? What goes on the top and what goes on the bottom?
The 1 mole of sulfur goes on the bottom.
All right, and why are you saying 1 mole of sulfur on the bottom?
So we could so we're left with just grams.
Exactly. So these units of moles are going to cancel out here, and we can be left with just the grams that are on top. So those are the only units we have left, meaning those are the units that are going to be on our final answer. All
We don't
right.
multiply those?
Now we're going to multiply everything on top. So
Oh.
the 2.4 times the 32.07. And we're going to divide by the bottom, which is 1. And how many grams do I have as my final answer?
It's not even. He said, hopefully not ran because I started losing period. The fuck?
What do I get for my final answer?
76.96.
What'd you say?
76.968
Right. And what are my units on that one?
grams.
Grams of,
Mole. X.
not grams of moles.
Oh.
Grams of what?
Sulfur.
Of sulfur. Perfect. Any questions on that
To
one?
be honest, I don't even think that I'm not good. Literally, the only thing that I do is I use my body to run into people and I like throw them.
Do you have any questions on either of those?
No.
Do we want to do one more? Let's just do one more for good measure. All right. So let's take a look at that third one. It says, how many grams are in 4.5 moles of NaF? So step 1, find the pathway. Are we starting with grams and going to moles? Or are we starting with moles and going to grams?
Moles to grams.
Moles to grams. Perfect. We're starting with moles and we're going to grams. All right. And we already know our chemical formula because it gave it to us already. So we don't have to do that. But we need to figure out what next. In order to go from moles to grams, we need to know something. What do we need to know?
Molar mass.
Molar mass is perfect. All right. So how are we going to find the molar mass?
You find it out for what's called sodium and fluorine.
Perfect. We need to find the molar mass of sodium and the molar mass of fluorine. So who can find me either of those two molar masses?
22.999.
Awesome.
19.
And 19. All right, now what do I do with those two molar masses?
Atom.
We got to add them together. So if I add those two together, what do I get for my molar mass?
41.99.
41.99. Perfect. And what are my units on this one?
Grams. NaF. equal 1 mole NaF.
Awesome. Perfect. All right, so now we have our molar mass, we know our chemical formula, we know our pathway. We can just set up our railroad tracks. Oh, come on. All right. Now we're all right. So we set up our railroad tracks. What do I put in the top left?
4.5 moles of NaF.
Perfect. We got to put our given up there, which is the 4.5 moles of NaF. All right, so now I need to put my conversion factor in that second column. What do I put on the top and what do I put on the bottom?
The molar mass on top, I think.
So that means what goes on the bottom?
1 mole NaF.
And why are we saying that?
To get rid of it,
So our
and be left
moles
with
go,
grams.
perfect. So those moles go away. We're just left with grams. What's our last thing we need to do?
Multiply
Multiply our 4
and
points.
divide by 1.
Perfect. And what do we get when we multiply and divide?
188.955
What are my units?
moles of grams. Wait, no.
Grams, NaF.
Grams of NaF.
Hmm.
Perfect. That's all that we have left are those grams of NaF, which means that those are the units we put on this 185.955. How do we feel about this now? Not too bad, right? All right, so then we have the other, I believe it's 6 more problems that you guys have, where these ones are just a little bit more challenging at compounds, and then the last 3 are you actually need to first convert between figure out the formula based on the name, and then do the conversion. I do really want to go over this part real quick. What this means right here is we move that decimal place to the left 4 times. So this number is going to be the same as saying 0.00034 grams. So just so we're aware of what that times 10 to the -4 means, it means move that decimal point to the left 4 times.